are some of the best techniques with level 2 and level 3 listening? But I think even to kind of break it down a little bit more, and I know we covered this a little bit in lives, but kind of an overview for some people that might be new here. Like what are these levels of listening? Like, because when I bring it up with people
Hmm.
outside of the coaching world, they're like, wait, what? There's levels of listening? They're like, yes. So if there's like if you can kind of give a brief description of what that is, but then
Hmm.
how do we get into level 2, level 3 listening? I mean, I know we have a short amount of time right now, but what could
Yeah,
that
of
look like?
course, of course. So the levels of listening, it corresponds to persons of a verb. Okay, so first person means I or we, second person is you, and third person is they. So and this concept, it comes. I mean, it's not new to coaching. Like, this is something that has been around. I think I went down a rabbit hole trying to find the original. Like, so where did levels of listening come from, and what is it? And I think they're pretty ancient. Like, I think it goes back even to some of the philosophers and trying to put themselves in different perspectives when you're like listening to the same thing. And I was reading Harry Potter to our 5-year-old. He just got into it, and I was thinking the brilliance of the characters and how the same thing happens. But then the characters, because of their perspectives, they see it in completely different ways, and how often that shows up in the book. And I was also relating that, thinking, oh yeah, that's a lot like levels of listening, where if you're listening to something from your I, first person perspective, I perspective, you're asking yourself, what does this have to do with me? How do I need to respond? Can I solve this? How can I be the best help I can be as first person? But you flip it and to second person, to listening from the sake of perspective or sake of someone else, the same topic can be completely different. And you're asking yourself the question, how does this relate to them? What's it like to be them saying this out loud right now? And that is level 2 listening. Like, if you're listening with that perspective, what's it like to be the other person? That's specifically what we mean by level 2. I call it empathetic listening because a lot of people outside the coaching world don't know what level 2 means. So empathetic listening works, but it's even more powerful than that. It's more like active, imaginative. I am imagining I'm you listening, and that's that level. And I think what it takes from new coaches, from anyone really, is it really does take the intention to listen and ask yourself, if I were this other person, what would I be most curious about, or what would my world be like, or what emotion would I be feeling? And it's not a logical thing. I want to get away from this idea that, oh, let me puzzle it out, like what they're thinking. It's more listening to them as another human, and allowing your natural intuition, your natural emotion, your you can trust yourself in that space. Like, the work is the effort is in the mental emotional effort to be curious, to imagine you as them. That's the effort work. But once you're there, the listening part feels effortless.
Mm-hmm.
Effortless. It's even less effort than level 1 listening. And after a while, that level 2 listening becomes even becomes easier and more fun and interesting. And so, I mean, there's a lot of times when listening level 1 just not as interesting anymore. It just feels like level 2 just get more coaching juice. Level 3 listening is listening to the other person, and also yourself and your own emotion, and asking yourself, that's an interesting emotion that I'm feeling while I'm listening to them. I'm going to make up that my feeling also is about my client. Now it gets a little tricky. It gets a little tricky. It comes from this idea of listening. Like, imagine that you were a third person in the room and you're listening to both people, the talker and the listener, and everything that happens in the room is about the talker, right? That's essentially where it comes from. And you have to, if you're doing this, you have to be very careful that you are confident and know what it feels like to listen level 2. Otherwise, if you're trying to listen to your own emotion as well as the person you're listening to, and you don't have that level 2 muscle built, then level 3 listening can just go back to level 1. You're just listening to yourself again, and you can feel it. It feels flat. There's a certain energetic to it that you can pick up to pretty quickly if you listen to a lot of coaching. And that's what level 3 listening is. It's amazing. It really is. It doesn't mean that you're listening your own emotion is right. It doesn't mean that like somehow you have some insight on them, but it is fascinating when it's almost like you're using yourself as an instrument of curiosity for the sake of someone else. And when you can use yourself as that instrument, it feels to me like a generous act. Like you are allowing your imagination, your curiosity, your human emotion processor, like you're basically giving that to someone to use for, half hour, 50 minutes, whatever it is. It's generous. I mean, you're getting paid for it too, but it's work. It's not, it definitely takes effort, but the effort needs to be in the imaginative part, not into the logical, let me like puzzle it together part. That might be, that's a description of the core of coaching.
Yeah,